Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Maria Parham, editorial page editor for the Arizona Daily Star. In tonight's AZ Illustrated Metro, we'll look at two angles of border security. First, we'll ask border residents what they think of proposals for immigration and border reform.
The Border Patrol is not on the border, and it's like it's always somebody else's fault. I don't know.
Then we'll look at which Tucson companies are creating border security technology.
Our solution involves a long-range radar with long-range cameras that can see both during the day and at night that can detect activity.
Then we'll get an update on transportation planning for the Tucson Metro area.
I mean, we only have to drive outside of this window, outside of these doors on Stone Avenue, to see that we have significant problems here in the region when it comes to transportation.
And find out when millions of dollars of road work will begin.
The idea is to provide the right treatment, if you will, to the right street at the right time, to extend that lifespan.
But first, a look at today's top stories.
Hospital Compare is a new searchable database put online by the State Department of Health Services. The website compiles years of data about every hospital in the state. The information includes quality statistics as well as costs. Officials with the health department say patient data was used to create the site, but no confidential health information is contained on the web. 48 states collect hospital data, and many, like Arizona, now make it available to the public. The state Senate passed a nearly $9 billion budget that included the Medicaid expansion plan championed by the governor last month. Action in the House has been stalled while closed-door negotiations have been underway on how the issues will be handled. Tucson Republican State Representative Ethan Orr told Arizona Public Media today that supporters of Governor Brewer's Medicaid expansion are pushing for action on the budget, including the Medicaid proposal. He said there are 8 House Republicans in support of Medicaid expansion, and when combined with all 24 Democrats, that's a majority of 32 in the 60-member House. And Pima County distributed money from the 2004 bond package to several affordable housing projects. One of them fell through, and funding from that project will be reallocated to others. Now Pima County has about $750,000 for new affordable housing projects that are ready for construction. They just need a little bit more cash. And that's a look at tonight's headlines.
A group of bipartisan U.S. senators is proposing to overhaul the nation's immigration policy. Arizona is no stranger to this debate. Christopher Conover went to the Arizona-Mexico border to see what residents there think about border security and immigration.
In Tucson, the border with Mexico is often on the minds of residents, but in reality, it's 70 miles away. However, in places like Nogales, Douglas, and Naco, the distance to the border is not measured in miles, but often in feet. Residents of Cochise County recently gathered in Douglas to listen to government auditors and others about the effectiveness of the Border Patrol. After the presentation, not everyone was impressed.
Same line of speech. They've been for 20 years and nothing ever changes.
On southern Arizona ranches and in border towns, the border and immigrants, be they legal or illegal, are part of daily life. Sue Krentz grew up ranching in Cochise County. 2 years ago, her husband Rob was killed on their ranch. Some speculated that the murderer was an illegal border crosser, but to date authorities have not named a suspect, so there is no definitive answer for that. Despite that incident, she still understands the plight of the border crosser.
We understand that it's cold out there and they might be hungry and they might need water. We understand all that. You know, in fact, we have one guy that, you know, he finally got his papers. He buys liquid feed from us. You know, he owns property up here by the hospital, you know. His kids went to coach's college, you know.
Dealing with illegal border crossers on private land causes problem for landowners when it comes to jurisdiction.
You know, what happens is the sheriff's department can't come and help you if you have illegals on your property. You have to call the Border Patrol. So if the Border Patrol is stressed and the sheriff can't help you, then what do you do?
Arizona residents who can see Mexico from their yards have mixed feelings about the Border Patrol. They don't want agents necessarily traversing their property. However, they do want the illegal crossings dealt with.
The Border Patrol is not on the border, and it's like it's always somebody else's fault. I don't know.
We still have a long way to go, but this bipartisan blueprint is a major breakthrough.
The immigration reform legislation proposed by a bipartisan group of U.S. senators includes a role for border residents. It says the legislation will create a committee of local officials and border residents to, quote, monitor the progress of securing our border and to make a recommendation regarding when the bill's security measures outlined in the legislation are completed. So in the eyes of those who live on the border, what does a secure border look like?
My home has been burglarized multiple times. I've had vehicles stolen, cash, guns, my neighbors murdered. I have game cameras in the mountains, and there's more dope today than there was 3 years ago. When that goes away, the border will be secure.
It's my honor to introduce Congressman Ron Barber.
Southern Arizona Congressman Ron Barber was holding town halls in places like Douglas as the members of the Senate were introducing their immigration reform plan. He was there to listen to border residents and says input from them is critical.
So I agree that we need to have stakeholders helping to define, not just to define, but to tell us when we've made progress. But in addition to that, I want the Department of Homeland Security to be able to say what they've done to implement a more secure border with the billions of dollars that they've been given over the last several years.
For some, the definition of a secure border is a simple one.
We, as American citizens and people in Arizona, deserve to live free and safe on our own property and in our home.
The fight over immigration reform and border security are just beginning in the nation's capital. It was 2007 the last time Congress tried to pass an immigration reform bill. At the time, it had the backing of powerful leaders from both sides of the political aisle, including Senator John McCain and the late Senator Edward Kennedy, as well as President George W. Bush. That proposal failed.
As we just heard, the federal immigration reform proposal makes border security a priority. Christopher Conover continues his look at border issues with a report on a group of Tucson-based companies developing solutions to border security challenges.
Looking at the border in places like Douglas or Nogales, you may think it is secure. But if you ask many people on the border, be they officials with the Border Patrol, local governments, or even residents, they'll tell you another story. They all acknowledge that the Tucson sector of the border is the most porous in the Southwest. Politicians also point out things are getting better, calling attention to the fact that the number of Border Patrol agents in the area is at its highest level. Despite that, officials like Governor Jan Brewer want what they call more boots on the ground, and that's not all.
You know, we need a lot more fencing in the area so where it would be productive. UAVs in the air, more technology. We need more, probably, Border Patrol agents. We need boots on the ground.
Technology and officers, patrols and boots are often grouped together in calls for better security. As if to drive that point home, DRS Technologies, a Maryland-based company, has recently set up a tower to test border surveillance near the University of Arizona Tech Park.
That's for testing.
They're hoping that the field test will convince the Border Patrol to buy the product.
Our solution involves a long-range radar with long-range cameras that can see both during the day and at night, that can detect activity, that allow an operator to see that detection on a command and control screen. They can then put the camera on that target and determine whether it's an individual, a group of individuals, an animal, a conveyance.
People who believe his idea.
At a recent town hall meeting in Green Valley, U.S. Senator John McCain said he wants to see technology along the border.
We also need to use and implement the technology that we developed in Afghanistan and Iraq. The use of drones, the use of sensors, the use of what my old military friends will know of as we call it situational awareness. In other words, a place where we receive the information, where you can surveil the entire border with this kind of technology, and when you see it penetrated with situational awareness, you can put people out to stop or apprehend or deter them.
This technology area
DRS has already sold some of its towers and mobile technology to the governments of Jordan and Egypt, but it's not the only technology company bidding for contracts with the federal government. Strongwatch has a pickup truck-based surveillance system.
Roll up the tonneau cover, you can see the entire skid mount. I control all features of the system through my gaming controller. The primary one would be the X button, which is going to be your trigger for your lasers. This is a 16-foot mast when it's fully extended. As I swing the camera back towards you all so you can have better ideas to what you're looking at. Lower right-hand corner is your color camera that has a low light feature to use during dusk and dawn conditions. Different zoom levels, focus, polarities that you can use.
Strongwatch is a local company supplying dozens of border sheriffs from California to Texas with the mobile surveillance units. But when it comes to border technology, some are skeptical.
One of the major programs, which was called SBI Net, made by Boeing, by the way, was a $787 million debacle. We paid Boeing $787 billion to set up a series of sensors all across the southwest border, and it utterly failed.
The use of more border technology faces one more hurdle: money. Currently, the federal government, including the Border Patrol, is operating under sequester, which means an automatic 5% budget cut.
The Supreme Court ruled today that even without a warrant, police may take DNA samples from suspects under arrest.
Marcia Coyle dissects the 5-4 decision, which split the court in surprising ways.
Then violent demonstrations raged across Turkey for a fourth straight day. We get the latest on the protesters calling for the prime minister to step down.
Margaret Warner reports on Hezbollah's increasing role in Syria's bloody civil war and the fight for a key Syrian city.
Hezbollah troops have helped turn the tide for the Assad regime in the current battle for the strategic town of Qusair. They have also added to the conflict's ominous sectarian bent.
Ray Suarez has the story of the court-martial of Bradley Manning, the Army soldier charged with the biggest leak of classified information in U.S. history.
And we close with a look back at the career and political legacy of Frank Lautenberg, the longtime New Jersey senator who died today at age 89.
That's all ahead on tonight's NewsHour.
In Afghanistan, the sons of former warlords want a different future for themselves. Their fathers knew only the gun.
The building blocks for a political sphere was very weak. Any small thing could easily erupt into full war.
I'm Renee Montaigne, the Sons of the Mujahideen, on the next morning edition from NPR News.
Imagine Greater Tucson is a regional planning organization. It's asking for public feedback to plan for another 1 million people in the Tucson Metro area. So far, the organization's efforts have focused on land use, but now officials are shifting to a specific part of regional planning. Andrea Kelly reports.
The big point is that people are looking for a more urban lifestyle, and they want to build on the urban centers that we already have and the ones that are developing. So we want to see the success of downtown Tucson, but we also want to see the success of Marana and Sahuarita and Oro Valley and South Tucson as well. And we want them to have a distinct and unique local flavor that reflects the people that have moved there. And that really is the difference. It's not that we want to see people move out of the desert, out of the places where they already are. It's not that we want to see the end of single-family homes. But it is that we want to see the ability for people to live downtown if they want to and be able to walk to work or walk to where they want to recreate or go to school. It is that we want to provide the choices that 20-something generation that we're losing every single day are looking for. So if they stay here and their friends stay here, then we can see the economic indicators that will show that businesses will come to take advantage of that 20-something generation and the talent that they have.
Now Imagine Greater Tucson is turning its attention to a transportation plan. Why the shift of focus?
I wouldn't call it a shift of focus. I mean, transportation and accessibility is one of our key tenets, and one of the things that the people of the region told us very early on they wanted to focus on. I mean, we only have to drive outside of this window, outside of these doors on Stone Avenue, to see that we have significant problems here in the region when it comes to transportation. Pima Association of Governments has outlined a $2 million shortfall in the money required to do the projects that we've already approved and have on the books. So we've got some issues here, and if we're going to grow, we're going to have to address those issues. We're taking the information that the people told us over the past 2 years about what they wanted to see with transportation, and we're building on that. So in the next couple of months, you're going to see us back out in the community holding more workshops. We're not only going to bring in speakers to inform people of what the realities of transportation are, but we're also going to get their input back and get the indicators of what they want to see happen further in the next 20, 40 years with the transportation assets that we have and what they would like to see money spent on for the future. And we're taking them back to the Pima Association of Governments to inform them. So in a very significant way, we're taking the role of doing public engagements for Pima Association of Governments and giving them that information back to inform them of what the people really want to see.
The Pima County area already has several transportation plans. You've mentioned the Pima Association of Governments long-term transportation plan. There's the Regional Transportation Authority's plan that goes through 2026. The Arizona Department of Transportation has long-term plans. Why do we need another?
It's not another one. If you think about it, they all nest with each other. We're providing information to Pima Association of Governments of what their region, what their people want to see. That plan gets nested in, well, it also gets combined with Tucson City Plan and the other various jurisdictions around the county. But that plan gets nested into the projects that Arizona Department of Transportation and the Federal Department of Transportation are doing as well. Think of it like different police departments. They all have their own jurisdictions, they all have their own areas that they influence, but all of those areas should feed together and work very well. So city streets feed into county roads, feed into the interstate highway system, and so on and so on. What we're doing is, instead of having that top-down approach that is so often seen around the country, where a government decides what the transportation options are, we're providing the people's point of view and what they want to see and their priorities.
You've recently asked for donations from the public. You're working on a $300,000 operating budget. How much do you hope to raise from the public?
Well, ideally, we would raise about half or two-thirds of our operating budget from the people themselves, and I think this is important. If we receive large donations from any single entity, then we get questioned on whether or not we are becoming a tool of that entity. And our role is to be the voice of the people. That's why we need the popular support.
Is this a new direction, less reliance on federal transportation funding and corporate donations?
Absolutely. That's where we're trying to go. So that, again, we're relying on our operating capital from the people themselves and the people we represent in this region from across the entire eastern end of Pima County. And we're also working on developing projects that would actually generate capital for us, where we are being asked in, maybe by developers, maybe by governments like the Pima Association of Governments have done, to do a study for them to represent the people in a particular area.
How will Imagine Greater Tucson use the funds that residents donate?
I'll go back to the work of the last several months since we released the vision. In order to get the Board of Supervisors and the mayor and councils for each of these jurisdictions to accept our plan, we have to do an awful lot of work talking to them individually, with their staff, and it takes not only just gas money getting to and from these appointments around the region, but also to fund the research and analysis that we have to do to answer their questions, to provide them the backup and just the general support of continuing to operate as we go out, find out what other regions are doing, continue to talk to the people, and represent their views to the politicians. The other thing as well is, as I mentioned, we're going to be going back out to the community in the next several months to ask them about their views on transportation, and that requires a significant amount of capital as well, just to hold those conversations, to rent the spaces, to provide the materials that we need to record those, and then again, to do the research and analysis of what they actually told us, to come up with the answers and produce that in a way that the politicians can digest.
In the November election, Tucson voters agreed to raise their own property taxes to pay for road repairs. The $100 million bond program is designed to address $20 million a year of road work each year for 5 years. Andrea Kelly has more details on how the program will work.
As we can see, several potholes.
Transportation directors throughout the state, like Tucson's Daryl Cole, have complained for years that they're getting less and less money to repair roads. The state has been spending that money on other things to balance its budget, and elected officials say they are sick of hearing complaints. Now that voters approved the road repair bonds, Cole says he will get started improving driving conditions in Tucson this year.
Our target is the summer of this year, 2013. Probably June, July, right in that area. You'll probably see our first project that we expect to start bidding in March of this year, March to April time frame, and hopefully have a contractor, initial contracts on board there in the June, July time frame.
The city's goal is to have more than one road under construction at a time. The City Transportation Department identified 130 miles of major roads that need attention. How much attention, though, varies.
We have a pavement management system. What we've gone out and we've inventoried all of our collector arterial streets initially, and then of course our local and residential. We're separating the two. The arterial and collector streets will get about 85% of the money over the 5-year period. So we target those, carry the most traffic, of course. And then we went into what we could do percentage-wise of the types of applications we're going to do, from a fog seal all the way to reconstruction. Wetmore right behind us will be one of those reconstruction candidates.
A fog seal is for roads that are in pretty good condition. The seal helps prevent them from deteriorating. A chip seal is another kind of seal for roads a little worse off, and a mill and replace is like a repaving, used when the road is so bad the top layer of asphalt needs to be removed. It's the most extensive and expensive road repair.
Typical lifespan of a pavement in the Southwest is 20 years. We usually get about 25 on our asphalt pavements from the time without any maintenance. The idea is to provide the right treatment, if you will, to the right street at the right time, to extend that lifespan. On a fog seal, you can extend the life usually 3 to 5 years. And then you go down and to a micro surfacing or a seal coat, you can usually get 5 to 7 years, as much as 9. And then you're going into the mills and overlays, and you can get 10 to 12 good years of a mill and overlay. And then the reconstruction is just that. You're starting over, you're taking it down to the subgrade and the base material and bringing it all the way back up and resetting the profiles of the roadway. And of course, those costs are all differently. You're from about $80 a square yard for the reconstruction behind us, construction costs, down to almost $3 a square yard for fog sealing.
As the Transportation Department gears up to ask contractors for bids on road work, the bookkeepers in the city are balancing the financial end of the road improvements. Bonds are like loans and are paid off by an increase in property taxes. That's why voters have to approve them. Kelly Gottschalk, the city's finance director, says the money isn't coming in yet.
Well, the tax gets set in August, even though it was approved in November. The new tax rate will be assessed by the county in August for the property tax payment due in November and March.
Gottschalk says the amount a property owner will pay in property taxes for road repair will change each year because all the bonds won't be sold at the same time.
We will issue the bonds starting in May to take advantage of when those property taxes start rolling in. So the first year property tax increase should be probably less than $3 that people see on their taxes.
Property taxes are calculated based on the assessed value of a home, so the owner of a more expensive property would pay higher property taxes for those road bonds.
What we've done is we've calculated what it would take for interest and principal to pay off those bonds over a 20-year period of time. So the interest, just like on your home, when you mortgage your home, the interest gets to be quite substantial, but the homeowners will never pay more than that $18 per $100,000 of household value.
Interest of about 3 or 4% is built into the $100 million bond, she says. The bonds are being issued in 5 $20 million chunks because that's how much road work the city believes it can do each year.
When we did the ballot question, we included in there the worst possible year for the highest possible increase for the property taxes. And that's after all $100 million is outstanding. And then it's only for a couple of years because the debt gets paid off pretty quickly over time. So they're really only going to see probably a few dollar increase in their property taxes for a period of time. It will go up a little bit and then it's going to start going down immediately. So I think over time they'll see a little bit of an increase, but it won't be, nobody should see the dramatic $18 increase in the first year, second year, or third year of the project.
In passing the road bonds, Tucson property owners agreed to raise their taxes to pay for road repair. That means the next challenge is avoiding the resulting construction zones.
Next, Andrea Kelly brings us a look at this year's legislative session.
This year's legislative session is ongoing. The session started January 14th and today has lasted 141 days. The legislature has its own rule that the session is supposed to last 100 days, and the lawmakers' compensation for daily expenses drops after 120 days in session. The only task the legislature is required to complete each year is pass a state budget for the following fiscal year. This must be done by June 30th, the last day of the fiscal year, to ensure funding for the next year beginning July 1st. That usually happens, but in 2009, lawmakers did pull a few all-nighters before passing a budget in the early morning of July 1st. The Arizona Senate passed a version of the state budget last month, but it still needs approval in the House of Representatives, and then Governor Jan Brewer's signature before it officially is the state spending plan for next year. The spending plan and the delay hinges on one key provision, whether or not to expand the state Medicaid plan, known as Access, using federal funding or skip an expansion at some expense to the state. Governor Jan Brewer said in January she wanted the state to accept federal funding for the expansion. Democrats and a handful of Republicans in the Senate agreed to pass it last month. The debate is expected to continue this week, with the House eventually considering the Medicaid expansion as part of the budget. In the meantime, other measures have been put on hold. That is partly because the budget is the main priority, and partly because Brewer has refused to sign any bills the legislature approves until she receives a budget. That wasn't an idle threat. She vetoed some measures last month to prove she was serious. Other issues are also outstanding as the House negotiates the state budget for next year. Those include proposed reforms to the state construction and sales taxes and education funding. Brewer is proposing changing education funding from a model based only on the number of students in a district to one combining that with how well a school district educates its students.
To post a comment about any of today's stories or keep up with the latest news, go online to our website, azpm.org. I'm Maria Parham. Thanks for watching.